Welcome to Blizzard and Bloom, the podcast where we navigate the storms and celebrate the triumphs in business and entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into stories, insights, and strategies from top professionals to help you thrive in today's evolving landscape. And now, here is your host, Jay Rotonnelli.
Welcome back to Blizzard and Bloom. Thanks everybody for taking the time to join us today. The last episode, we had Martin Tirado, CEO of CIMA organization. He brought a lot of knowledge and value to the folks listening and association at large. So today, I got a special guest on. We got Dean Outhouse, who is a snow removal manager for Piscataqua Landscaping and Tree Service. Fortunate enough to be able to work shoulder to shoulder with him. He helps the cream rise to the top. Dean's very passionate about the industry, brings a lot of knowledge to the table, and now is actually on the board of directors for CIMA. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dean. Dean, thanks for joining us on the show today. Glad to have you here.
Jay, pleasure is all mine, and you laid it on pretty thick there on the introduction, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, you got a ton of knowledge. You and I share a pretty lighthearted relationship with work. The snow industry can be difficult. Doesn't matter how much prep you put to it. You come across challenges, and that's the reality. As you and I always talk about, it's great to see everybody put all this stuff on social media about how perfect things are. But at the end of the day, we do have challenges at times, and it's all how we work through them and overcome them, right? So give us a little bit of background on how you got started in the industry and how you came into the role at Piscataqua Landscaping.
The industry, how I got into it, the snow removal business was basically through college. I worked for a bank and I worked in the maintenance section and I started plowing there. After college, I bought my first house in downtown Portsmouth, had a truck, and quite frankly, didn't want to plow my driveway. Put a plow on my truck with Paul Chase up at Rye Fisher. Been with him since he shut down the doors a couple years ago. And basically it grew from there. And then I met Justin. Justin had me get into CIMA and it just took off. Like anything else, if you're passionate about something, it just simply took off to the point where a couple years ago, my wife and I couldn't sustain the company anymore. So we closed the doors, and these doors at Piscataqua opened up for me.
Nice. It's interesting because you have a pretty in-depth knowledge of the industry, and I know you've been involved in the organizations some way or another throughout your career, and even locally, which we'll talk about in a little bit here with the New Hampshire Green Snow Pro. What are some of the experiences that, when we talk about some of these involvements, organizations, things of that nature, that kind of help shape your approach to snow management?
Well, CIMA's been huge. I mean, anyone who's not a member of CIMA should be a member of CIMA. And like anything in life, it's what you get out of something is what you put into it. So if you're just merely going to click on register as a member of CIMA, and that's it, you're not going to get anything out of it. You got to be willing to listen to some of the podcasts, listen and go to the functions, the symposiums, all the other conferences that they offer, the online training. I mean, the website is, I have yet to get through the whole entire website and what the website offers as far as training. You got to put into it in order to get out of it what its full value is.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I had a mentor years ago and, he'd always say, hey, if you're paying for the tuition, you don't go to class, that's on you, right? So we kind of think about those things. And I was talking to Martin about it during our retreat there about a month ago. And how true is it to think there's a wealth of knowledge and then just the people involved with it. When you think you're at the crest of your career and you're doing the best, man, it's like you can always learn something from somebody. So again, Rob Miller and I had a chance to chat about that as well. And it's like, he's been doing it for some time and I might have 15 or 20 years on it, but I learned a lot of stuff from him. So taking advantage of CIMA and the networking and all the resources they have there has been pretty great. So as we kind of shared before, talk to me a little bit about some of the tough aspects of managing snow operations. And then along with it, how do you navigate through some of these unpredictable weather conditions? Because it really kind of all snowballs into one, no pun intended.
The weather's unpredictable, and the seacoast, New Hampshire, we're seeing, as everyone's aware, the weather patterns, the weather shifts are simply changing. On those days of getting the snow at night, all light and fluffy, 3-4 hours, we clear it all, we treat it, and we don't have to do anything before the next storm. That's long been put to bed. The systems come in, they're long durations, for only a couple inches at times, mixed in with a little rain, a little sleet. This last storm, which it beat us up pretty good, we had 2 days of 30, 40-mile-hour winds that just it was unrelentless. So Mother Nature in itself is that she tests you every single time, and no matter what plan of attack that you have, you're gonna get knocked off that beam pretty quick, and you got to pivot and be fluid and come up with something else, or else you're just gonna get stressed out and burnt out.
It's interesting too. So I was thinking about the last storm here in New England in the interior sections, only an hour and 15 minutes north of where you were located. It was all snow. We had a very small amount of sleet and ice, but that wasn't the case on your end with, within, like I said, an hour and 15 minutes. So you hit the key word there. It's like, how do you pivot and how do you get everybody to go along with it? And, I think that's an interesting thing. So with that said, and through some of how do you handle the logistics, the equipment, the team coordination during the storms, there's things like that?
Well, the coordination aspect comes months in preparation prior to winter even happening. Equipment on site, stuff like that, the game plans, the scenarios. I try to tell all the account managers, picture a storm in your head, go through it, how you handle it, and what happens if this happens, or if a machine breaks down. But the biggest thing that I've been trying to work on the past couple of years is things are going to go wrong. If anyone tells you they went through a storm without a single incident, they're absolutely lying. It can be very minor, and that very minor issue, you take back, you look at it, how it happened, and what changes you can make to ensure you have something in place if it happens again. It's going to happen again. You need to have something to react to it so that you are able to react to the situation. And the other thing I'm trying to work on with a lot of account managers, remain calm. It's stressful. The winter, quite frankly, like you said, back-to-back storms, sleep deprived, stressed, things are going wrong, equipment's breaking down, employees aren't showing up. But you got to just take a deep breath, relax, because what happens if you show up on site and the guy or individual shoveling the sidewalk sees you all stressed out and burnt out and just tweaking, well, he or she's going to get all nervous, and it's just going to go down, like you say, a snowball. It's just going to go roll down the hill, and it's just going to get worse. So that's the biggest thing I've been really trying to work on and tell people is that just try to remain calm so that calmness filters into everyone else that you're working with.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you and I chatted about that earlier too. You could have slept for the past 6 weeks, right? And then you get a storm and one of these presents all kinds of different challenges. And then you're out for 2 and 3 days. And then between the sleep deprivation and maybe some malnourishment where you think you're doing great. And then, you start to react. And that's where cool heads prevail. So you and I had a discussion after this last storm.
Yeah.
We had a few challenges and we got some great partners and clients that we do really great work for. And they got it. They understood, and we made some alterations. We learned from a few things because I always say for as long as I've been in this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen 2 storms that are exactly the same. I just don't believe I've ever seen it.
Only on Groundhog Day.
Only on, that's right.
You brought something up, Jade. I want to remind people that is when a client calls you and is expressing displeasurement or just not satisfied, just take it in and don't. At that point in time when you're on that phone call and he or she is, quite frankly, could be hot, they don't want to hear excuses. Just simply say, listen, I'm going to take what you have into play. I'm going to go back to my team and see what happens. Don't, at that point in time, provide an excuse as, well, this went down, this person didn't show up. Set that client at ease. Let them know that you're going to handle it. You're going to take it back, the information back, and you're going to work on it to ensure that you have things in place so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Like you said, nobody wants lip service, right? And excuses, but people are human too. And there's that side of it. I say we're in the snow and safety business, but we're in the people business too, right? Whether it's snow industry or the landscape industry. So certainly cooler heads prevail and you get a lot further when you think about it from that standpoint.
Cooler and patient. Sometimes people don't like that awkward moment of silence, but sometimes just don't say anything and let the client keep talking.
Right.
And let them get it all out. Because that's all really they're calling for you. They're just letting you know that they weren't satisfied.
Yeah.
So let them, he or she just let it all out. Let them vent to you and just explain to him or her that you're going to go back to the team and see what happened and make sure you have things in place so it doesn't happen again.
Sometimes, we think about those things. And again, we've had it the last storm just because it was such a tricky one. Sometimes when they call, they're not necessarily upset. They're maybe just venting because somebody came to them. And quite frankly, sometimes it's people that, weren't dressed for the inclement weather, but, they hear it on their end and when maybe in fact, you follow good practices. and have done everything possible. But at the end of the day, it's Mother Nature. So that kind of leads me into kind of the next subject. So we talk about best practices. Talk to me a little bit about New Hampshire Green Snow Pro, your involvement, what the RSA is, and how we're implementing it here at Piscataqua.
Well, it's a couple different RSAs. The numbers off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure, but I do have them in my folder. But it's a system that was derived about 10, 15 years ago for an added layer of protection to those who voluntarily want to go through an educational process on how to reduce their salt usage or salt output. And then teaching them, the contractor, how to teach the client so that it just rolls downhill. It's a great protection, liability protection aspect of it. And New Hampshire is it's the golden child for all the other states and all the other congresses that are trying to implement the same practice, but it's difficult. It is that extra layer of protection when you abide by all the best practices for litigation brought against you.
I think it was this last symposium. So New Hampshire Green Snow Pro has a symposium once a year in September. I think it was this last one. There was a panel and they talked about an actual case where there was a slip and fall. They talked about rather in depth about the rules and regs relevant to that law, but also the fact that you have to do due diligence as well as a contractor. Yeah. So this isn't just hey, I went, I listened, got my certificate and walked away and I'm free of responsibility, right? So we talked about, some of those things. What are some of those things that are required and, that something to think about so that you can have that protection?
Yeah, it's not definitely the New Hampshire Green Snow Pro certification is not that monopoly get out of jail free card by any means.
Yeah.
Much like SIMA, it sets a bunch of tasks that you need to abide by. And these are all things that the attorneys are looking for as well. First of all, your weather reports. You got to keep your documentation. A lot of people use independent contractors. I suggest that you keep those, print them up, the certified snowfall totals, the forecasts, and you keep it on binder. I still have them to 2005. I got them in binders. Yeah. I just have them. I always can go back to different winters and look at them. Also, the biggest thing is your real on time of that site. When a person clocks in this time, clocks out that time, and what task has he or she done, whether it be shoveling, walkway treatment, plowing the parking lot in a truck, a loader, or salting. In time, out times are definitely needed. And then anything else that may be in there, I keep a lot of photographs of different issues. I always tell people that when they go to do their site checks pre-season, if you get that drain spout that's dumping on the sidewalk just outside the front entryway, you snap a photo of it. You send it in an email to your client saying, hey, this is a slip and fall liability. Can we get this fixed? Mm-hmm. And keep that documentation. Keep these documentations of, they're called burr baths, where the water's pooling in the parking lot in certain areas. Photograph it, email it out to the contact person, and keep that log, that change. So you have all this information that you've gathered for the specific site as far as service times, forecast before, the weather, certified snowfall totals, and the weather in between as well. The more documentation you have, the more documentation you save for at least 5 years, the better off you're going to be, because they have up to 3 years to file a claim. You may never know until that third year. And that happened to me once, about a decade ago.
It's really all about the documentation.
That's all it is. Document. And train too. Train. Keep the training, because that could come into play as well. All your training hours. Where did you get it? Where did you go? Who was there? Who put it on? Keep a binder. Keep a folder on the computer of all your training that you have. The more training that you go to, the better off you'll be in litigation. Now, even if you have all these things and you supply them, you very well could still be in court for 1-2 years. It's just, it's the way the court system and the attorneys work. They're going to try to find that little loophole where you may have, by accidentally putting the wrong date on one of your property log sheets or something like that. Something as simple as that, you could lose a case over. So it's not just so much the documentation, but ensuring that the documentation is accurate.
Yeah. And interesting you say that about the documentation, because now it's to the point, because this law is so stringent and really protects the contractor, that it's important to do that and follow due diligence, because now that's what they're doing, is just simply looking for loopholes. They know they can't fight the RSA,
No.
So now they're looking for loopholes. Whether you feel you did due diligence, and you may well have, but if you didn't document it or you made a mistake.
And that loophole could be something as minor as you saying it's Monday, June 3rd, when it's actually Monday, June 2nd.
Sure.
If this is incorrect, what else is in here is so you got to make sure that the documentation that you're recording is accurate. And it's a lot of stuff to go through.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, wintertime is not just wintertime. It's spring, summer, and fall for some of us.
And, I don't want to forget about the flip side of the RSA either, that, it really is about salt conservation, right? And doing the best we can and being good stewards of the environment. So, with that is the proper training of the salt, because if we're doing our due diligence and trying to be good stewards of the environment and salt appropriately, then we should be respected and not held liable should somebody wear high heels or something and slip, or get out of that one spot in the parking lot where they open the door and that's what happens. So I've seen other folks from New England now joining in New Hampshire by showing up at the symposiums. And if nothing else, they're getting educated so that maybe they can share that with their teams. And then who knows, when a slip and fall comes down the road, they can say, hey, I know we don't have the RSA here in Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, whatever it might be, but, we sent folks here and we are trying to do the best practices that are out there and available to us. So thanks for talking about that. Like I said, it's a great program and glad to see you staying involved with it.
It's unfortunate the amount of salt that we as U.S. and Canada put out and how much water it actually pollutes. And then it's mind-blowing.
And the longevity of it. I don't think people realize the longevity of it, right? We can get into a whole other...
It's a very expensive process to turn that salt water back into normal drinking water.
So kind of one of the last things I want to talk about was, second to last, is how do you prepare for the season with the team? When does that start and what does that look like?
Preparing for the next season actually occurs throughout the season we're in. It's constantly evolving. Right now, I meet with each zone account manager. We try to meet once a week, whether it be an in-person or just a simple phone call. What's working? What can I look into that may help or improve efficiency? Not service, but efficiency for the service that we're offering. And then it's just, and the notes, each zone, I keep writing the notes, taking down the notes. This is what I got to look into. So it's a constant evaluation of how we're doing, how we can improve, how we can offer more efficient and better service to the client. So it's never stops.
I think it goes back to, there's never two storms that are the same either. Right. So as we go through these storms and then you review, there's always ways to get better at some of these things and what we can do. So I want to, last question kind of that I had for you was, share an interesting or funny story with me that you might have had snow-related experience that you might have encountered, whether it was here, PLTS, or in your prior business. But there's always a funny story to something, right? So, or an interesting story. I'd love to have it. I'm sure you have one. You probably got a bunch.
I have several. And some that I really shouldn't discuss in a large crowd. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about trying to decrease the amount of stress that people are experiencing. Now, I'm a jokester. Anytime there's a door that opens that I can play a prank on someone during the wintertime, I'm up for it. Now, Justin and I, back 2 decades ago, we were all using the pony motors on the salters, and we'd always just go over and pull that spark plug cap off. So when the guy goes to try to use a salter, it doesn't work. Or when you go over to the guy and he's pulled his truck in, right? Put his plow down. Well, you unhook the plow, drop the thing, and unplug it. So when he backs up, the plow's still sitting there. I love doing, and I do them to people. I love playing pranks on the mechanics. I mean, my office here is on the second floor. I got 3 mechanics downstairs. I'll open up the window every now and then and shoot little rubber Nerf balls down at it, just so that the tension is. We're all tense. Everyone's stressed. We got to find ways to reduce that stress, and sometimes it's quite frankly playing a prank on someone.
And it's all about the timing too, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Certainly, you catch them at the wrong time, and it might not be well perceived. But
correct.
But I agree with you. I think trying to keep it light goes a long ways, especially in the heat of the moment.
And that even goes in with when you're checking in or during a conversation during a storm. Have a somewhat normal conversation before you get into the nuts and bolts of why you're calling. That's one thing that I've really tried to work on in the last 2 years.
I was thinking about the mechanics and fleet management, and you think about the time and effort they put in to prepare us all for the storms, right? Yeah. And then at the end of the storm, there's the mounting list of equipment that failed. I mean, nothing fails when it's not working, right? It only fails when you need it. And I think the other day when I went by, and we run really a late model equipment, Piscataqua does a great job of investing in innovation, quite frankly, and having newer vehicles and equipment and attachments and so forth and processes. And when you go by and you see some things that are lined up or trucks rolling in that, things need to be serviced and the mechanics are coming in and they see that, it's a little bit of sign of defeat.
Everyone will always say, geez, the mechanics are cranky today. Like, well, think about it. Every day they put out a product that's ready to go. And every morning when they come in, there's a stack or trucks parked and lined out the shop with notes that have to be fixed. It never changes for them. Yeah. You're always bringing them stuff to fix. So, of course, they're going to be cranky.
Most often, and I just want to be clear here, most often it's not big things, but it's a light out on the headgear of a plow, right? Or a belt broke.
Yes.
On one of the salters or whatever it might be. You lost a shoe or an edge. It's all those things that it doesn't matter how much preventative maintenance you do. There's always going to be some of those things. And that's why, quite honestly, I wanted to chat today because it's about reality and being real. And those are the things we face day in and day out. And I stand behind 100% that if somebody went out there today and said, I nailed 100%, there were no issues, zero issues with the equipment, zero issues with the help. We used exactly the appropriate amount of product we were supposed to. Everything's on.
Go buy Powerball.
Right. Go buy Powerball. Right. You're not being true. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate you sharing some of your insights and knowledge. You're a huge asset to the industry at large. I had these conversations when I was on my retreat a few weeks ago, and I'm super proud to work shoulder to shoulder with you and what you're bringing with your knowledge to the association at large as well, and in North America for that matter. So some of the things I think about today that we talked about is the communication, being prepared, being real, and really trying to stay level-headed, right?
Level-headed, I think, is across our industry. If we could get more aware of to remain level-headed, I think everyone would get along a lot better and less stressed. I'm working on that each day and taking that breath before I say something. I think if we all do that, I think the team as a whole will stay better gelled. Yeah. And that comes down from the mechanics up to the account managers, up to the shovelers, up and the loader operators. If we all can just take a deep breath sometimes before we communicate with each other, everything's going to go a lot smoother.
Well said. And I see that happening, and kudos to you for working through that with the team and educating. I always say in this industry, we all had a way to learn. We all learned somehow, right? Somebody taught us, showed us hands-on with books and hands-on, but everybody deserves a chance to learn. So I appreciate that. Thanks again, Dean, for being on the show. I got a great guest on the next one. We've got Kevin Battistoni, who's the National Customer Experience Manager for Hunter Industries. So we will see everybody then. So thanks again.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for tuning in to Blizzard and Bloom with Jay Rotonnelli. We hope you feel inspired and empowered. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Join us next week for more insights and stories to help you bloom in your business journey.